Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone, depending where you are. We are here back again on Thursday, myself uh, and Kwame. Uh, okay, just a little bit technical problem. I was hearing my own echo. Yeah, so every Tuesday and what's going every Tuesday and Thursday, we are here to analyze what's going on in the continent, but also what's going on globally that affects Africa. So, for our topic for today is exploring the United States paranoia. From the African perspective, always. This is a channel, it's a Pan African platform. So, we always try to give it that Pan African perspective, whatever we are discussing, because it is our business. That's why we are here. Kwame, welcome. You're muted.
Oh, thank you so much, Mahlet. Thank you so much. And thank you to the viewers. We are back again, once again. And we want to welcome you also, all of you who are watching. And we want to thank you for staying with the channel and helping the channel to grow. You continue in that direction. When you continue to support us, also, we will be energized to continue to push the agenda of the continent. As you all have seen, out there is very, very few platforms where the African agenda is being pushed. Even, our very own media houses, who have a lot of money, in the different parts of the continent, they are really not bothered about what is happening to the continent. Majority of them, they are always talking about European football. They are talking about this and that, but they are not really discussing the continent in its entirety. But we here, and we are concerned about what is happening to our continent, and even within our continent, from the south to the north. Right now we are very concerned about what is happening in Sudan, that there is a war in there, and even we want to do a program on it. Actually, if there's anyone who knows somebody from Sudan, they can reach out to us, put a comment, in the section, and then we'll, put a comment in the comment section. We will reach out to you so that we can talk to this person and we can have a dialogue on this. We are concerned about what is happening in Mali, Guinea, Libya, whether it is Algeria, South Africa, all these, Ethiopia. We have spoken repeatedly about these, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, because we believe that we are African and we should be concerned about all the territories, all the territory of the African continent, whether it is Morocco, whether it is Comoros, and we hear Comoros has rebuked recently the I think it is the European Union about some indecent inappropriate behavior. We hear in Chad also issues happening there. They expelled the German ambassador for making unsubstantiated substantiated remarks. So all these things for us, we care about them and we are concerned about them. So that is the very reason why you, as viewers, African viewers across the continent and across the globe, you have to come out in numbers and support our channel, because we are pushing the African agenda also. I want to thank you on that note, and the subject which we are going to discuss today, as Mahlet has rightly, elaborated on it. We want to look at the behavior of the United States, these days, what is happening. We hear the United States has, passed a bill in Congress, the HR 7, I think it is called 7311, which was supposed, that bill was passed, concerning Africa and Russia, to deter Russia's activities, what they call Russia's activities in Africa. And that, what that means is that they don't want Africa to cooperate with Russia. And then there is a threat of the China debt, which has been going across the globe. and even to Africa, within Africa, that, United States officials have been sent to the continent to talk about date and all that, and, to threaten Africa that it is not good to deal with China. But we want to understand what is driving this behavior, not only on the African continent, but also across the globe. What is driving the behavior of the United States in the South China Sea? Even within itself, we see that they try to silence President Donald Trump. They try to silence Russia and the various people who are coming out. Edward Snowden. They try to silence the WikiLeaks guy. So all these people who are speaking up against this aggression are being silenced. So we want to examine it today with Mahlet here. Why this behavior? Why is the United States, behaving this way? So I want to thank you very much, Mahlet, with that.
Thank you, Kwame. Yeah, so Kwame has said it without further no repetition. I think let's go to the question. No, so we have analyzed at different times that coming of different U.S. officials to Africa, even ever since 2023, since January, and also we have examined as well recently, actually on Tuesday, the comment by President Macron and why Republican and different senators are coming and attacking this comment or going against it, and the issue on the South China Sea. All these are separately analyzed, but now we are going to go to the root cause of it. Why the United States is behaving in such a way? What drives it? What is the cause, both internally and also in its external relation with different countries, whether it's be it with the with the Western countries or with China, with Africa. So we're gonna go. So mainly we are going to look at what drives it internally and externally, and also is it can the US and the West, its Western allies, continue to do things in the old way? I mean, is it sustainable? Is it good for the planet that we are living in? And of course, lastly, we are going to talk about what should, in the midst of this, Africa is part of the globe. It's affected by the external relation and foreign policies that the US is upcoming with, and what should Africa do? What should be its role? These are the things we are going to talk about. So, Kwame, some call it, I mean, what is going on in the United States, especially internally, and also you will give us a picture also externally, but first really internally, that can explain its behavior. Some politician authors call it a paranoid style is the way of US politics. But I don't know if that is true. So yeah, please, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mahlet. We have seen the United States. First of all, I think let me first play this short video, if you allow me, Mahlet, to share this short video, and then I will take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, it's there.
We have to make sure America writes the rules of the global economy. And we should do it today while our economy is in the position of global strength. Because if we don't write the rules for trade around the world, guess what? China will. And they'll write those rules in a way that gives Chinese workers and Chinese businesses the upper hand and locks American-made goods out. Nike announced that with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it'll make new investments in advanced manufacturing, not overseas, but right here in the United States. And far more Nike products would be made in the USA. And that means thousands of new jobs in manufacturing and engineering and design at Nike facilities across the country, and potentially tens of thousands of new jobs along Nike's supply chain here at home. That's what trade can do. This deal would be a good thing. So let's just do it.
Yes. That's it. With that being said, I wanted to start with that video. Reason being, because it gives us an idea of really what is driving the American ruling class. We see that this is the Democrats, of course. Obama belongs to the Democrats, and on the other side, of course, we have Trump and the Republicans. And these people, to us as Africans, they have, and actually to the rest of the world, they have appeared to be not different from each other. Looking at the policy which they have for the world, the foreign policy specifically, if I may point out, they look to be not different from each other for us, because whether it is bombing and destroying nations, all of them do it. And actually, the Democrats, who have been looked at in the past as a little bit more restrained and less aggressive than the Republicans, these days have turned out to be the most aggressive, actually. When you look at people, like Hillary Clinton, you see the behavior of Biden these days, antagonizing and pouring weapons in Ukraine. Actually, Hillary Clinton, people feared her the most. Actually, even myself, I feared her the most, because the woman is very aggressive, is very ambitious, extremely ambitious. And so we as Africans, we don't see a difference. And the Africans and the rest of the world, we don't see a difference between, these two groups which claim that they are very different. But on one side, also, there is a difference between these groups in implementation. Actually, they differ in implementation of this aggression that they carry out, on the world. And this aggression, when they are carrying out this aggression on, against the world, does not only stop there. Because when we go back to the 60s and 90s, during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, during the deindustrialization phase of the United States, whereby areas like Detroit, were deindustrialized, the Mississippi and all those, they were deindustrialized. These people who are the ruling class, part of the ruling class, or the richest, the 1% who are controlling the government together with the ruling, have captured the ruling class, and they control the United States government, whether it is the Republicans or the Democrats. And they ganged up together to industrialize the United States and pull out the industries and leave their people behind. And so what we are seeing, or what we saw in 2020, the trend that brought Donald Trump in those years, starting 20, I think it is 2014. I think it was 2014 or 2016, somewhere there. The trend which brought Donald Trump is that trend of deindustrialization. And the Democrats have been, very good at covering that behavior, covering up that behavior, or that corruption in which the ruling class connives with the 1%, in bringing a lot of misery upon the people. For example, if you look at the 2008 financial crisis, that President Obama immediately, when he came to power, he immediately gave a financial bailout to the banks. And these banks, they are the 1% who are tormenting the world and causing a lot of corruption. So the corruption, instead of being punished, it was instead rewarded. So this is what we are seeing even right now internally, is that this gap what they call the gap between the rich and the poor, or the haves and the have-nots. Actually, people like Ray Dalio have written about this, and they have said that the increasing gap between the poor and the rich in the United States is going to cause a lot of trouble. And in most cases, when this trouble arises, they find a scapegoat. So they try to find a scapegoat internally or externally. For the case of internally, for example, Trump comes and wants to take advantage of this. He wants to take advantage of this discontent by the people because of these financial crises that have been happening since 2008. Of course, they started way longer, but what we know right now, the ones which have been worse, starting in 2008, then the 2020, Trump had been capitalizing on this discontent and exposing, the elites in the United States, and they don't like this. That is why you see that they decided to gang up on him, because Trump was saying that the media is corrupt. The ruling people who have been in government for a long time. That is why he even attacked Bush. Even though Bush belongs to the Republican Party, to which Donald Trump belongs to, but he attacked him. So you see that Trump decided to attack the status quo. And they didn't like it. They didn't feel good about it. He attacked the media. He attacked the status quo, the Democrats, and even attacked the Republicans who were there, who are participating in this. And his thinking is that they should come back inside and first put things in order within the country, and then they will be able to go out there when they are, strong again, because they have declined. And from his diagnosis, Trump saw that what has made us this way is because we have been participating in in wars and building what he called building other countries, helping other countries to build themselves. Actually, they have been participating in wars. He pointed that out, that we have wasted so much money outside that we have neglected inside. And so Trump's appeal came in such a way that he appealed to that discontent of the people who feel that they have been neglected in the country, in the United States. And so the middle class and the ruling class and the business class and those ones who own the media had to come heavy, on Trump, because they think that he's not moving in the direction where they expect him as part of the elites in the nation, to be moving with them. And so these are the things which we are even seeing right now, that when they took power, they took back power, like Biden took back power and they removed Trump. Now they have been able to reconsolidate that power so that they can continue with their agenda. Hence, you hear things like Biden saying that America is back. America is back when he won, the election. After winning the elections, America is back, and then he goes back and puts back America to to the Paris Agreement. They start reviewing the Iran nuclear agreement. He pulls out of Afghanistan, and all these steps that he has been making and re-engaging the world when Donald Trump had been pulling out of the world. He's re-engaging the world in which Donald Trump had been pulling out. But why is this? Why do we have all this friction right now inside, that even up to now, even though Trump left power, he's still being hunted down? He's being hunted down by the Democrats. It is because they are facing a lot of problems inside that they cannot solve. And so we see that there is a breakage now. There's a crack within the middle class that is happening. Actually, there is a political scientist called Eric Lee out of China who predicted this, that the American democracy, he said that American democracy will break inside within, and there will be a conflict. And actually, to re-emphasize this, even people like Ray Dalio, who is a world-renowned investor, who wrote the book Principles of Understanding the Changing World Order, has mentioned this, that the increasing friction and difference in thought and opinion within the ruling class is going to cause America a lot of problems. So he mentioned the increasing income inequality, the gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And then we have the increasing animosity, towards each other between the ruling class, the Democrats and the Republicans. So we see that these are the problems that are causing the United States a lot of difference, a lot of paranoia. And because they cannot solve these problems of increasing, inflation, they cannot solve these problems internally. So they decide to deflect. Trump, what he reminded them is that we have to solve the problems. We have to face them. The Democrats say they don't want to face the problems. So they want to deflect those problems and put them on the rest of the world. Hence, you hear things like, when we come to your second question, we hear things like, China is a threat. China is a threat to the United States. Russia is a threat to the United States. So they deflect their audience in the nation, so that they can focus outside, like what you saw in the 80s and 70s, when they were facing problems with the civil rights movement. They decided to deflect the attention of the world from their nation and the injustices which are happening inside the country because blacks were being mistreated. So they decided to deflect that and point it, in the 1960s, of course, they decided to deflect that attention and put it on the Vietnam War and said they are fighting communism around the globe. They are fighting the evil communists around the globe because America was facing a lot of challenge. And this happens majorly with the American politicians, that this is their behavior, that whenever they are facing a problem internally which they cannot solve, they try to deflect the attention of their population, their citizens, onto something which they say is the enemy. But in this age, when people have the information, and even when the media itself in the United States and the Western world has been discredited, people have the information, enough information to know that China is not our enemy. Our very own politicians, are our enemy, from our understanding, because they have failed to deliver on majority of the promises which they made to us as a people, as American citizens. And I think the American people are not so stupid, to think that, the brainwashing that is being subjected, that we are being subjected to from CNBC, Fox News and all the others, that this is the truth. I think that this era of democratized information, I think, has brought about that understanding whereby people, can be able to go out and seek out their own information. And hence, that's why you hear people like, that's why you see people like, people like, how do you call this guy? I've forgotten his name. The guy who was arrested recently. I hope I will remember his name. You can see that individuals who have started channels, for example, on YouTube, they are able to attract so big audiences to come and listen to them, because people are seeking out for that truth. And so this is what we see that is happening with the United States, that there's a lot of friction inside, that the politicians have failed to deliver on their promises. People from Obama, when you look at Obama things he was mentioning, they have failed to deliver on those promises. And so Trump came to take advantage of that, even though they have been promising, from, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, who performed, horribly for the nation, Obama, and then Trump. So people are still looking for those answers, and the answers are not being delivered by the political elite. While the economic gap, the economic inequality, is expanding and expanding further and further on the international stage. Like we said, on the international stage, the desire of the United States, to make the rules for everyone on the international stage, that is what is driving. We see that is driving its behavior. If you listen to President Obama, for example, in the video which we played, he was mentioning that they should be able to make the rules. They should make the rules. China should not make the rules. And mind you, China is the second biggest economy in the world right now, and is the second, most powerful nation on the world. So if they are telling China that China should not make any rules, the United States should be the one making the rules, then we as Africans who are coming from smaller countries and much poorer countries, we should know our place, of course. We should know what they are talking about. If they are telling China should not make rules, then we cannot say anything. That means we cannot say anything, because we are termed as the third world, and even they give us what they call aid. Of course, what we think is money that is stolen from us. And so the desire to dominate the rest of the world, the desire to continue the colonization, the colonization policies, which came from all the way from the 16th century, when Britain was coming here, and the Europeans and Spain and Portugal, when they were coming to the African continent to take slaves and carry out slavery, and when they came back after 1885 to try and colonize, those same policies, the desire to continue those same policies of dominating others' markets and then dominating their raw materials, is the same policies. They are the same policies which we see that the United States is trying, to drive, so that it can continue to benefit itself. It can continue to enrich itself. Its citizens can continue to grow fat, while the rest of the world, they grow lean and they starve. The rest of the world is starves, at the expense. They should continue to grow fat and continue to expand at the expense of others. So when they see that this is not happening, that China is growing, the African countries, a lot of them have been growing, are relatively, growing. If you look at the GDP that we have been posting ever since, China rose as an economic power, we have been posting GDP figures of 7%, 8%. I think in some cases we have some countries even which have posted 10%. So because China has been growing, and that growth has been, also has been reflected in how Africa also has been growing, because of the help in infrastructure that Africa has got, then this brings about that decline in the West, because now they are not the only ones who are growing, and they are not the only ones who are sharing in the global prosperity. And so you see that their economy, for example, China's economy in the first quarter of this year, figures just came out yesterday, that China grew by 4.5%. And the United States has been growing by less than 1%, 0.9, in some cases 0.6. But maximum is 1% that it has been growing. And if you go to Europe, actually Europe economies are just contracting. They are not growing, going forward. So all this has created a paranoia in the United States that China is trying to surpass them. As we speak, China has hit $19 trillion of the economy, and the United States is still at around 24 trillion. So they are fearing that China is overtaking them, and the militarily also China is building up on the other side. And so this creates fear within the United, the psyche of the ruling class. It creates fear that there's something which they are not doing right. And so, and of course, they are not doing right. A lot of things, there's a lot of things which they are not doing right. So they think that the only way is to confront, is to use nuclear weapons. Is the only way now to be able to solve this problem is to deflect the attention of the population at home, confront and then start smearing China across the globe, smear China on the African continent and say China's debt is the one which is killing Africa, even though we know that the IMF debt, which is led by the United States, which is financed by the United States, is the biggest debt that is choking Africa, that is taking the life out of majority of the African economies, because now they are enjoying the growth that we have benefited because of our association with the China. They want to come back to the continent and enjoy and actually suck out that growth which we have been experiencing for the last 10 to 20 years because of the growth that has been happening in China. So you see the demonization of China increasing. You see the demonization of Russia, hence the passing of a bill like 7311, HR 7311, which we mentioned, which was called the Russia Alignment Bill, that was passed in the United States Congress. So this behavior all is driven by one thing, that they are not performing well at home. The economy is declining. The United States economy is not doing well. The fear that China is overtaking them economically and militarily, because China right now is spending more than, I think, $400 billion also on its military, even though China is just spending that money around itself, around its territory. The United States is spending $1 trillion, on the military, and that military is for dominating the whole, world. So they see China as a threat. They see Russia as a threat. Actually, they see anyone who tries to strike out an independent foreign policy or an independent economic policy, even if it's, and political policy. They see that person as a threat, and we have seen that happening even with Ethiopia recently. That Ethiopia was trying to strike out, has been trying to to strike out an independent political policies and economic policies. They see this as a threat because of its influence that has been growing in the Horn of Africa, and so this behavior has caused actually much more of a problem, not only fear within their hearts, but it has also caused them problems, and it has caused the depletion of their reserves to the extent that the people in the United States themselves, have become dissatisfied. So the United States doesn't see a way out. The politicians don't see a way out apart from continuing to escalate until probably maybe they will be defeated. So this is what I think that we are seeing with the behavior of the United States when you are talking about internally and externally, how it is been behaving on the international stage. Thank you very much, Mahlet.
Thank you, Kwame. That indeed is well explained why the US is behaving in such a way, or the anxiety, rather, both internally and externally. Thank you very much for that analysis. In fact, just to say one highlight, when the US together, all the so-called international financial institutions and the mainstream gang up against a specific country or a leader or anything, that's where we Africans should look into. There is something good, and not just to be carried away by the mainstream media. I mean, so many people, I'm not saying he's good or bad, but you should examine what Trump was doing or trying to do. At least we don't have to take sides, but at least examine it. Yeah, thank you very much. Now, the U.S. we have heard that the U.S. politicians at different times talked about publicly protecting their way of life, or the United States way of life. Shed a light. What does that mean? And what does it have an impact? Does it affect us? What are they referring to?
When you are talking about the American way of life, we have had this being mentioned by various American, politicians and diplomats. Our way of life in their speeches, whether it is Obama, whether it is even Trump, George Bush, and the various mainstream politicians in the United States. But when you are talking about the American way of life, actually, when you examine the figures, I think that the American way of life, which they mean is for them to continue eating everyone's cake, eating all the other people's cake, and continue to grow at the expense of others. I mean, you can look at people like Donald Trump, for example, when they were attacking, when they attacked, of course, Syria, and Trump came out in broad daylight and said, "We are keeping the oil. We are keeping the oil. We have to keep the oil. We have to keep the oil out of, Syria. The oil field. We are occupying where the oil fields." And information came out, of course, that the United States was stealing Syria's oil. So when the United States is talking about the American way of life, anyone who tries to threaten our way of life, this is what they mean. Let us look at the figures, for example. The oil, the oil that is being produced across, the globe, the United States is consuming about 25% of the global oil that is being produced across the globe. Even when you go and examine books like the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, I think it was written by John who, I've forgotten his name. The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he points it out to you, very well, and says that the United States is consuming 25% of the global resources, and yet the population is just 5%. The United States population is just 5% of the global population, but it is consuming 25% of the the world resources. And hence you see them driving huge cars, you see them growing fat. You see, that's where you find the biggest number of people with obesity, because these people are consuming more than is necessary, and this consumption leads to the starving of other people. Even Obama, when he came to speak at the African Union, he said that it is not sustainable, and unashamedly, Obama unashamedly, he said it, that it is not sustainable for Africa, all of them, everyone, to have a car and have an air conditioner is not good for the environment. People like Obama said such things when he came to speak at the African Union in Addis Ababa. So what this means is that they should continue to enjoy, the resources and the good life of others, while others are starving, others are not allowed. And hence you see these attacks on anyone who's striking out an independent policy, because they think that we, the rest of the world, should stay in a controlled, within controlled parameters of development. And so this is what everyone doesn't ask themselves. When they say underdeveloped world, who is underdeveloping those worlds? You see, when you are talking about underdeveloped and developed, who is underdeveloped countries? Who is underdeveloping those countries? And what we have found is that these countries are not really underdeveloped because the people in these countries, they don't want the countries to develop, but because these countries, they are being robbed. And so when you are talking about the American way of life, that is the American way of life which they are talking about. Going to countries, bomb them, take their resources, and then turn around and start preaching to them. This is the American way of life. Go out there, spread the hypocrisy, and then when you see anyone who challenges you, go out there and bomb them and kill them. And so this is what we are seeing that is causing so much anxiety, the rejection of this so-called American way of life by the rest of the world, that you cannot continue to bully us. You cannot continue to use our resources. You cannot continue, to depend on us. You cannot continue to be a parasite. And all of Europe, that is how they have been behaving, that they have continued to act and behave like parasites and consume other people's resources and impoverish them. And I mean, you can look at France even. Look at France, how it has been behaving in the Sahel, until countries like Mali and Burkina Faso started rejecting, this behavior. And of course, we still have France in Gabon. We still have it, all over. We still have it in Cote d'Ivoire, in Senegal. We have it in Togo, Benin, and all these countries. We still have them. So when people start rejecting this so-called Western way of life, Western values, which values are hinged on exploitation of other people's resources and living in wealth, living in heaven, while other people live in hell, and then the same group of people come around and start preaching to them about your values, how it is good to be democratic, when you have blocked off their democracy, when they have used institutions like the IMF and World Bank to siphon off our resources from the continent, the World Bank and the capitalists, to siphon off our resources and use them in the West to build it themselves. And I mean, we had in one of the speeches in which George Bush was giving to the Congress one time when he was still president, he said that America's oil energy resources come from mostly the unstable places of the world, and we have to do something about it because they were facing an energy crisis during that period. And he said we have to do something about America's resources come from mostly the unstable places of the world. So you can see that it is in their interest to keep the world unstable so that they can steal the energy resources. And so we see this, as we have rightly spoken about what is happening in Syria, that they are in Syria stealing the oil. You can see they caused the destabilization in Libya so that they can continue to steal the oil. Iraq, Afghanistan, all the destabilization in Somalia. We don't know right now what the oil companies are doing right now in Somalia because the president who was resisting them was removed. Now the new president is there. Probably now they have even started pumping out the oil from Somalia because they want to enjoy these cheap resources from unstable, places of the world. Because when people are desperate, then they will take any little money which you give them and you will take away their resources. And so this is what the American way of life is about. And when we see that China is trying to help the rest of the world to overcome this behavior and to help them and say there's another way, we can cooperate. Okay, we can help you to build the roads, we can help you to build the infrastructure so that also your economy can grow. The United States doesn't like this. Why is it building infrastructure for them? It is not allowed. So it seems like the United States wants China or the other partners across the globe, like Russia, to behave like how it is behaving. The American way of life, it means the United States coming around and spreading its hypocrisy. It means it's private companies coming around and taking over your economy. That is the American way of life. It means demonizing the Africans, who own businesses. It means demonizing the public institutions that are trying to represent the interests of the African people. Demonize them so that they should not own gold. Demonize them, they should not own anything. Because we are not on the same level of development with them. So they want to come and say, privatize everything. And they will come and buy it out because our own people, they don't have that, financial muscle to buy out gold mines, buy out gold, oil blocks. So they say privatize it so that they come and buy it, and our nations should not represent us. So this is the American way of life, to continue to dominate the world and continue to spread the hypocrisy, continue to take over everyone's resources, and continue to bomb all the others, and then grow rich at the expense of other people and other nations and people, and while you are killing them. So this is what I do understand. This is what I read from what these politicians normally say. Even when you listen to them, their arrogance. This is, definitely what they mean.
Yeah, thank you, Kwame. That's indeed an American way of life. Just to add one on what you have listed, also they deny you loan or donation, whatever, of those financial institutions like IMF and World Bank, majorly funded by the US, so that you privatize your biggest organizations, profitable, industry, whatever you have at home.
Absolutely.
This is exactly what Ethiopia is now, right now.
Yes, and actually sometimes even they don't want to use those industries. Sometimes they just want to destroy them. Like if you look at what happened in the 60s, 70s, after the 70s, because that is when the liberation generation, which brought Africa, from colonialism, and got independence for the African countries. When that generation was wiped out, the Nkrumahs, the Lumumbas, then they started implementing the structural adjustments. But that generation actually had built industries in Africa. And when you look at countries like Ghana, for example, but even in Nigeria, they had built a lot of industry in Nigeria. If you go and read Aliko Dangote's book, there's a book which was written on Aliko Dangote. The book is called The Richest Black Man in the World. So when you go and read and see what happened in the 60s, you can see that in the 60s, 70s, we had a lot of industry. But these people, some of those industries, they didn't want to use them. They just wanted them destroyed, completely destroyed, so that there's no industry in Africa, because they saw these industries as a threat, to their existence. They saw it as a threat to their market because they want to keep dominating this market, and we should not have industrialization to use our own material resources. They should rather use our material resources, create jobs in the West, and bring back and again sell here and use the markets and get benefit from the markets, get benefit from the material resources, and then also get benefit from the market, sell to us. You have seen Volkswagen, Ford, Mercedes-Benz. So they don't really feel that we should have our own automobile companies. But in the 60s in Ghana, they had started manufacturing automobile cars, vehicles. They had started manufacturing vehicles, but they came and destroyed the overthrow of Nkrumah. And the next regimes which came, the military regimes, which were, of course, following their advice, they told them that they should sell all the industries, sell everything. If you want loans, you have to sell everything. And so this is what we see that happened. Some of the industries, actually, they do not want to own them, even though they want to retain some of them, like the energy industry, the financial industry. They want to control those. They want to control the construction industry. When you're talking about things like cement, for example, they want to control those. But others, they feel that they will only be satisfied by crippling them, by destroying them, so that they don't work completely. You can see, you can see this even in Nigeria. For example, Nigeria right now has more than 4 oil refineries, but all of them are not working. And who is serving the refined oil products in the country? Shell and Total and all these companies, these multinational companies. They're the ones who are controlling the refined oil, market, refined oil products market in the country. So there's tactics which are always used to destroy the local industries, the indigenous industries. And they tell us that the only way out is liberalization. The only way out is privatization. But we see that claim has been debunked when you go to China. Even in Ethiopia, the development model which Ethiopia has been using is a mixed, economy, that you have the state on one side and you have private capital on the other side. In China, it has grown rapidly. You have the state capital on the other side and you have the private capital on the other side. And this has helped the country to grow rapidly. And you see this even in Singapore, countries like Singapore. This is what happened. Majority, even in South Korea, majority of these countries which developed rapidly, they use the part state capital and part private capital as a combination together. But in Africa, they say, don't use the state capital, use only private capital. And this is unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you for that quick reflection on the topic of how, as one of our audience here, viewers said it, IMF is the tool of total economic warfare. Yes, they use them to really destabilize countries in the world. Now that we talked about, this is the American way of life, okay, then do you think the US and even its Western allies would continue to do the old way? There are, of course, given that so many changes in the world, it's happening. And also there is a cost, there is an internal pressure that they have that you explained in the beginning, do you think it will continue? Do they afford it? And is it even sustainable to the planet that we are living in? If you can just quickly address that.
Yeah. So the what's actually the United States calls and the Western world, of course, what it calls its way of life. I think it has proven from time to time, during the past period, the past 600 years, that is not sustainable. When Gandhi was asked that the capitalist system, was brought by the West, uh, and he said that they asked him, how do you see it when you assess the benefits, when you weigh between the benefits and of course the costs, the benefit and costs of the Western system. And he said that actually Gandhi, what he said is that if you look at this system, they brought it, but if you look at the cost of the capitalist system which the West brought, he said that it is not worth it. That if you look at how many people have died because of this system, it is not worth it. And this is, Gandhi of India, this is what he said. And so this is also what our ancestors were fighting against. When you go and read the works of people like Kwame Nkrumah, if you read the neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, he said that this system is very dangerous, that it doesn't only, even Martin Luther King Jr. himself, he said that this system, it doesn't only oppress the external people of the world, but it also oppresses even the ones internal, the internal people. After, for example, the United States has fought wars and destroyed countries like Libya, destroyed Afghanistan, you see that on the streets of the United States, when people are demonstrating, they bring out tactics, military tactics, which is almost the same tactics which they have been using in the Middle East, the same tactics which they have been using in Afghanistan. You see paramilitary police. Police have been trained almost in military tactics. So this is what people like Nkrumah and Martin Luther King were saying, that the horrible thing about this system, this capitalist system, is that it oppresses not only the people outside its borders, but it also oppresses the people inside, its own citizens. We spoke about the income inequality, that this ruling class, this business class, these capitalists, after exploiting the rest of the world, they are not satisfied. That is not enough. They will come back even to their own country, to their own capitalist societies, and exploit the people within those societies. And so that is why you see homelessness springing up on the streets in California and Los Angeles. People are becoming homeless. 50% of the United States population doesn't have $400 for emergency. When you ask them, do you have $400 for if you get an emergency situation? The people in the United States, they said they don't have it. 50% of the people, they don't have it. So you see that this is the stage. This is the level to which we have reached, because the system is unsustainable. The capitalist system itself is very unsustainable. The United States military as an institution alone is the single most polluting institution across the globe. Polluting environment, single most environment polluting institution across the globe. And yet they are not slowing down in funding this pollution. Every year, more than $1 trillion is given to this institution. Every year, more than $1 trillion is given to the United States military. What is it for? And it's for destroying other countries. It's for killing other people. And mostly, actually, innocent people who don't even have anything to do with the United States, drones and stuff like that. So they are polluting the environment. They have destroyed the countries. That is why the system is not sustainable at all. And that is why majority of the people across the globe are rejecting it. because people are saying that it cannot continue like this. We can't continue to live life like this. We cannot continue to bear the burden and enrich a few people who are living like they are living in heaven with private jets. You see people, some people, they have 100 cars, in one garage. Somebody has a house with 30 rooms and they don't sleep in it even. So the system itself, I think that it is not sustainable. And that is why you are seeing that when people have rejected it, as you have seen that the United States is reacting and Europe itself is reacting to its decline in a violent way, because other parts of the world have decided that they will handle things in their own way, how they understand it, and they will develop their nations also. They will look upon themselves and look out for their own interests. So when this happens, then your exploitation is bound to face problems, because you have been living in an unsustainable way. You are consuming 25% of the resources of the world, and you are just 5% of the population of the world. I mean, this is unsustainable. This is absolutely unsustainable. So this, I think, is bound to face, a lot of backlash continually. It is going to continue in this direction until I think until we see what until we see what I think Eric Lee, the political economist, the political scientist Eric Lee, called the warring state, the era of warring state, because he predicted that we are entering the era of warring states, whereby cultures will start asserting themselves. So that means there's not going to be an architecture where we all plug in, whereby the United States will continue to go around and Europeans will continue to go around the world to preach to people on how they should behave, on how they should run their political systems, how they should run their economic systems, because they will not be actually even allowed to come to those countries to carry out that kind of preaching. And we have seen this even people like Museveni, where you have seen some speeches where people like Museveni of Uganda saying that the Europeans, they should stop. They have to stop, preaching to the rest of the world. They have to stop, and especially to Africans. They say that they should stop. They should stop, coming here to preach to Africa. That behavior has to stop. So you can see that this is happening in real time. That people like Eric Lee said it, about a few years ago, about 5 years ago. But right now it is happening even before our very own eyes. So the system which they created and their way of life, what they call their way of life, is really not sustainable.
Yeah, speaking of sustainable, CNS here from our viewer said the USA military alone does more pollution in 140 countries. The military, no, than the USA military alone does more pollution. It does more pollution than 140 countries. The military has over 850 military bases around the world. And then Sinobia said Africa needs a strong military in order to stand up against American military. Africa needs to secure Africa's borders against enemy enemies. Another one, Africa's contribution, this is by CNS, to global green gases emissions is around 3%. Africa
Yes,
should not even...
It's around 3%. Africa's contribution is very little, and yet they are pushing us that we should reduce our emissions. And actually, worse than that is that they committed themselves to, during the Paris Agreement, they committed, the United States and all the so-called developed world, those ones who have been, doing the biggest pollution. The United States is the one which has polluted the most, this world and its European partners during their industrial phase. They committed themselves to $100 billion every year to help the global south to clean up and to adopt, green economies. That money, ever since the Paris Agreement, I think it was 2015, when the Paris Agreement was signed, that money, not a single coin has come out. For, they committed themselves to something which they are not even able to fulfill. So it becomes unfortunate, and they continue to push their hypocrisy to talk about, clean environment. They continue to clean energy, that we should implement clean energy, when they have failed to honor their own pledges which they made to us, that we should be able to adopt to green economies. I mean, this becomes very unfortunate, and unfortunately, our politicians and our intellectuals, they don't hold them accountable when they come here. That is the only unfortunate thing which I see, that we need to hold them accountable when they come here to our countries. We have to hold them accountable. When we see them, we should hold them accountable, or on things which they have said, whether they are talking about democracy or they are talking about climate change. We should hold them accountable, for these things, so that they can get some shame. They can get, they should be ashamed within our economy, so that they will not come back to our countries, talking all that kind of uncoordinated things and hypocritical things and nonsensical things, which in most cases they are not going to do.
Yeah, but I have a question. Yeah, it's indeed unfortunate that they're not holding them accountable. CNDS adds that the promise was first made in 2009. But I have a question, and this was actually some of the things that were raised in the recent climate summit, or whatever it was, the global one. When the burden comes, although Africa's contribution to those emissions is 3%, when the impact will affect the whole world. It doesn't select, oh, these are the ones who contributed a lot, so I'm going to affect this area. That is the argument they have for Africa to be in this discussion, and to be willing to cooperate or whatever. Because I read here, CNDS wrote a comment, Africa's contribution to global green gases emissions is around 3%. Africa should not even be part of the climate discussions. Africa has to invest more into industrial power to process its resources. Just, I give you 1 minute if you have anything to say. And CNDS, you can also write to my question your answer in this chat section. Yeah, Kwame, do you have anything to say? You are muted.
Yes, of course. We will also equally face the effects of the climate change. Of course, they are right to say that. But what Africans have said consistently is that let the people who have polluted the most, go first. Let them start the process of cleaning up. Okay, because when you talk about, for example, the $100 billion that was promised during the Paris Agreement, that money has not come up. So that means these people are not serious. These people are really not about climate change. It tells you that this is not what they are about. They are about some other agenda. And what we have realized is that they want to slow down Africa's development progress by coming up with these excuses of the climate change. And when you ask also, can you share with us in the gains which you have made due to the pollution, because you industrialized and polluted, share with us in the gains so that we will not also pollute. Bring the industries also here so that we will not pollute. They will not do it. They will not share the money. When you go to the IMF, which the United States, of course, has staffed with the printed dollars, which it has printed, they will still put interest rates on the money which they have made, the huge profits and gains and wealth which they have gained. So I think that the Africans, we should disregard them when they are talking about even, climate change. Coming to Africa to talk about climate change and green economy, I think we should disregard them. We should absolutely disregard them, because they are going to come around and throw around like $50 million, $20 million, and then they will make a lot of noise on that. And because there's no one to hold them accountable, like we said, that look, this what you are throwing around, maybe $20 million or $50 million or 100 million, even $100 million. This is nothing. Looking at what you committed yourself to, and you have not played. You have not fulfilled. You have not fulfilled your pledges. You can't come around and be throwing around $20 million. But unfortunately, now so far we have not got people to hold them accountable to this extent. So I think that as Africans, we should really ask hard questions when these people are coming here. And actually, I like one journalist when Kamala Harris came to Ghana, the vice president of the United States. When she came to Ghana, a journalist, this is the type of question, the journalist asked. The journalist asked, you people committed $100 billion during the Paris climate change. Why have you people not, honored this pledge, and yet you continue to come around here and say and talk about, climate change, how Africa should implement climate change activities, should implement climate change or policies? She did not, she played around with the question and dodged the question. And so I think that this is the level to which we have to hold them accountable when they come here. And I think that we should stop, I think, the inappropriate behavior of cowering and not saying what we mean and meaning what we say, in most cases.
Yeah, there you go. This seems to strengthen what you just answered. In fact, it has another agenda, to tackle down the ambition or the plan of Africa or anywhere else in the world of their development ambition or plan. So, for example, here CND said in the 90s, the collective West was talking about pollution in China so as to stifle its industrial processes. So the patterns are consistent, meaning also when it comes to Africa. Now we are completely carried away, not completely, but partly from our main topic, but it's good. It's a platform. It's to educate. I see that, same attendance of students, which we are really happy. That tells us the number, it matters, but it also doesn't matter at the same time, because we know that we are putting out there and it's relevant and people are coming. We see same attendance of people. But continue to share this video after we are through. We are not through yet. Now, coming to the last question of or the last talking point for this live streaming is that the main one, as we always do, how it impacts Africa, whatever topic we are discussing. Now, we have talked about, the so-called American way of life. In that regard, should Africa continue? I mean, so far, willingly or unwillingly, or consciously or unconsciously, Africa has been supporting it, right? This American way of life. Now, can Africa afford it can afford to do the same? The world is changing. It's a the multipolarism world has been created now. What should Africa do? What should African positions should be actually?
Yeah, if you look at our continent now, our population has grown, and actually, if you look at the regions of the world with the biggest population, you can speak of India with 1.4, I think they said 1.428, I think China is 1.423, and Africa also is around 1.4 billion people. So these are the three biggest areas where the population is huge. And so our population is not like in the 1960s or 1900, when the population in the 1960s, when it was around 300 million people all across the continent. But as you know, more than tripled or quadrupled right now, that it is important to pay attention to the needs of the African people. So 1.4 billion people cannot continue to finance the extravagant life of the United States or the Western world. And so, in the same spirit that the Middle Eastern people have resisted this behavior and said that we cannot continue to finance, your way of life. We cannot continue to finance your extravagance. I think that is in the same way that Africans also, we need to stand up also and start. And actually, even though our older generation does not, buy into this spirit, this generation have to stand up and realize that there's nothing good that is going to come from the relationship with the United States and Europe, because these relationships are predatory in nature. Before we organize our continent as Africans, there's nothing good that is going to come out of from these relationships. As we have seen since independence, that the relationship between Africa and the West has been predatory, and it has been one way. It's only one side which has been benefiting. So we, as the young people of this generation, as Africans, that is the number one thing which we have to realize, that this relationship has not been beneficial for the last 600 years, and it has been one way. Only one side has been benefiting. And so before we organize ourselves, we do not qualify to engage ourselves, in these kind of relationships with such people who have consistently shown themselves that they want to behave like parasites. They want to be parasites and depend on you. So a continent of 1.4 billion people cannot continue to finance the extravagant life of the Western world at the expense of its people. We have the needs of our people. So the resources of the African continent, whether it is oil, whether it is the gold, whether it is the diamond, should now be used for the benefit of the African people, for the development of the African people, for fulfilling the hopes and aspirations of the African people, for fulfilling and improving the lives of the African people. And this is what we need to be doing as Africans, and we need to be doing this aggressively. We need to redefine the terms upon which we engage the United States. And unfortunately, we cannot do this individually as states, as individual states, 55 states on the continent. We need to do this as a unified force. And this is what even people like, President Kwame Nkrumah was talking about in the 1960s, and from the 1950s, 1960s until he was overthrown, up to 1970s when he died, is that the only way we can get the leverage to gain an upper hand and negotiate for the right prices of our resources, whether it is diamond, whether it is cocoa, whether it is coffee, whether it is cotton, whether it is copper, is if we unify our efforts and we have one body that represents us as a people. In this way, we will be able to take back control of our resources and fast track our reconstruction as a people, and fast track the improvement of the lives of our people. In this way, we would not go around begging, because even the people we are trying to beg don't have the money. The United States doesn't have the money. If we want the money, it is just printing it. If we want to reconstruct, so why not? I think it was President Kagame who one time asked that if the United States can print and Europe can print and give us, why should we not print it ourselves? So these were questions, and these are, these are the questions that we should be providing answers to, especially the next generation. We have to stand in that gap and do that. So I think that we have to be very assertive in this aspect. That is number one for me. Number two, I think we have to get the hang of this thinking that there's a savior out there who's going to save us as Africans. When you are talking about, for example, the march talked about foreign investors, foreign this, foreign that, foreign capital, foreign IMF. You see today that there has been a lot of misbehavior and misuse of funds in countries like Ghana and Zambia, that the economies that right now are suffering, that they have to run to the IMF because they see people have been conditioned to think that the only way for us to develop as Africans is to go out there and search for other people, search for foreign investors, which we are calling foreign investors. So to the extent that even the foreign, the money that we are supposed to pay our civil servants, we have to go and take it from foreign people, foreign IMF. I mean, this becomes very, unfortunate. And this behavior, I think we have to get, we have to get off this kind of behavior, because the United States itself as a country is already suffering. We have already spoken here numerously that the United States itself is facing a lot of homelessness. Within itself is facing, economic problems. We have seen people demonstrating in France. So how can we take our countries as Africa and then go and be asking money from France, which France, people are already, 3 million people on the streets right now demonstrating because France doesn't have money. So how can we be begging France to give us money, 1.4 billion people? I mean, this becomes unfortunate. We have an economy of $3 trillion as Africans. We should be able to come together to utilize $3 trillion as capital, to take us to the next level, because we have the greatest assets. We have, 1.4 billion people, human resource, educated, more than 70%, a literacy rate. We have the material resources. So what is stopping us? There's nothing stopping us, because we have the monetary capital, we have the human capital, we have the material resources. There's nothing else which we need. The only thing which we need is we need to come together and start working together as Africans with one government, one foreign policy, one economic policy, one central bank, one military to protect us. We don't need France and Germany. We don't need the United States to be on the continent. I mean, worrying our continent. So I think that we need to get off the hang that that idea that the foreign people are supposed to help us in anything. They are supposed to help us in constructing. There's no foreign people who have ever helped any nation in building itself. Whether you're talking about China, it is the Chinese people who took it upon themselves and their leadership and built up China. So I don't see where we get the idea that without organizing ourselves and without building a strong foundation, which is organizing ourselves and coming together and working together, that we can use the foreign capital to build ourselves. You cannot use the foreign capital to build yourselves and foreign investors if you have not organized yourselves. And this is what we have seen, that some nations have been able to successfully use foreign capital, nations like China, because they organized themselves. And in Africa, the foreign capital that is supposed to be used for that development has instead turned into a curse. It has turned into a means of exploitation, of exploiting, African resources. So I think that we need to get off that thinking that foreign investors are the ones who are going to, develop our continent. That is number one. Number two, if you look at the behavior, actually, let me first go back a little bit. Actually, the United States itself needs these industries. That is why you are seeing that it is fighting for them to take them back from China, and even fighting to take them, some of them from Mexico, because it wants these industries back. It wants these investors back to the United States. You have been hearing them talking about reindustrialization of the United States. You heard Obama, you have been hearing Donald Trump decoupling from China, because they want industries to come back. So if these people want their industries back, so how do you expect that those same industries will come to Africa? So those high value industries, they will not come to Africa. So we need to start finding a way of supporting our own investors within our countries, and rebuilding and reorganizing. Number one, reorganizing, ourselves. Number three, which I wanted to speak about, is that Africa has to participate on the international stage with the behavior of the international cartel of aggressors, the United States and its allies, escalating conflicts across the globe. Africa has to stand up and play a very important role on the international stage. We cannot afford as Africans to continue to stand aside while people who have been destroying the world continue to do it, and continue to call it a field day without anybody saying anything. I think we as Africans, we have to stop being timid. Our leaders have to stop being timid. We have to come together. If the leaders have not come out to say it, we as the youth, we need to come out and organize ourselves and issue a statement on behalf of the African continent. But we cannot afford, we as Africans, to continue to keep quiet when the world is being destroyed. When a war is going on in Ukraine, and the United States is continuing to fuel that war, even though Russia has indicated that it wants to settle down and negotiate. And countries like Brazil and China have also expressed, their desire to help to settle this conflict so that people can come on the table and negotiate. Because at the end of the day, still they are going to come and negotiate on the table. When they are tired of fighting, they will come and sit down on the table and negotiate. So why not start the negotiations right now? Africa has to be on the table also. It cannot be only, Brazil and China on the table who are bringing these people. The African voice has to be represented. Africa has to stop being timid, and standing on the side as if we are not players on the international stage, as if we are not citizens of the international, stage, as if we are not citizens of the world. We are citizens. We are equally citizens of the world, and we have to assert ourselves in the same way that all the other countries are asserting themselves. And so we cannot leave the destruction of the world to a few people. We cannot let them destroy. They are just, about 20% of the population, the Europeans and the United States. They're just 20% of the world. We cannot let them destroy the world that belongs to, 80% of us. Majority of us, the brown and black people across the globe, they have the majority of the population. So we cannot let them to continue to destroy this world for us, pumping weapons there, stirring up, conflicts everywhere across the globe, raising tensions in the South China Sea. I think Africa needs to come out and speak with a very strong voice and warn the United States that we cannot continue to allow this aggression and the provocations that you are doing all over the globe. You are destroying, and things have to be mentioned. The situations have to be mentioned plain and clear that you destroyed even us, you destroyed Somalia, you destroyed Libya, and you have continued to deploy your militaries across the African continent. You destroyed Afghanistan. We cannot continue to allow you, to pour weapons in Ukraine, and we cannot continue also to allow you to cause provocations within the South China Sea, because these, what will come with it is a risk of a nuclear war, because all these countries have nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons. China has nuclear weapons. We cannot continue to send the world and push it, in this direction. I think we as Africans, we need to come out strongly in this direction and warn and put out our warning and state our position that we cannot stand for this. Thank you very much, Mahlet.
Thank you very much, Kwame. We have really completed our 101 on exploring the United States paranoia, and gave it, of course, African perspective that it deserves. Thank you very much. I will just see if there are some questions or comments here. We need to clean our own dirty laundry before we bring in outsiders. That's Sinovia Ridley. And then, I agree. Africa should focus on what is beneficial to Africa. For the West, the pollution is so fine so long as it benefits them. If it benefits anybody else, it's then a problem, or as a commentator said, it's a bad thing. Yeah, thank you very much. We are really happy bringing you these topics, what's going on globally, but of course that affects Africa. To give you a background, it's an educational, it's a Pan-African platform, but and also it's educational. It's not just topical issues, reporting on the current thing. No, we give it a historical background, and then we discuss what's happening, and then also we bring the African perspective to it. We are so excited every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you this. So please, if you did not subscribe, please subscribe, share it with your network. And as soon as this live streaming is completed or ended, then please go and share the video to your network. Of course, if you find it relevant, which I believe so, considering your engagement here. We are going to also to put, it's not just we come and talk about things here. As we repeatedly said in every session, we do things on the ground as well. There are some petition we are going to pin down after the live stream is ended, and then that petition, there are 3 petitions that you need to share. After you signed, also send it to your friends, your family, your network, for it to be signed. It's an important thing that brings change in the continent. Some big Pan-African people have been involved, or endorsed this petition. To the minimum, you can support us by sharing this video with your network. So Kwame, before we close, I will give you, for you to say something as a closing remark, and then
Yeah, so I just want to thank those who have been with us to the end. Snovia, thank you so much, and all the other people who have been hanging with us in this deliberation when we analyzing and deliberating on where we see, especially Africa, because even though we talk about these things that are happening, we are more focused on Africa as our continent because we want our continent to move in a certain direction. So as Mahlet has rightly mentioned, we have petitions that are going around. Those petitions, majority of people, a lot of people have signed them. Also come and sign those petitions. Mahlet has put those petitions and she will put those petitions in the comment section. Come out and support those petitions. That is the only way. You can also contribute if you have some support that you want to give. Put in the comment section, and Mahlet will reach out to you. Leave your email. Mahlet will reach out to you, and then we'll talk and see how you can support the program. Support the program. Even financially, share the videos also with others. That's the only way also we can be energized to continue doing the work. The work you do, you see here doing, we are doing is not very easy, but in either way, even though we are busy in some other ways, we always find time to come here, and talk about our continent, because we love our continent. We love our people. There's no way you can love the people. There's no way you can love the continent if you can't love the people. So we love our people all across the globe. And we thank you very much, everyone who's watching, and come and support us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kwame. One important question. We have one from Sabla Wangel Tariko. She asks, the question is how African countries organize politically and economically, given that currently geopolitical competition is a problem in Africa. It's $1 million question. It needs a program by itself to bring that suggestion. As we always say, it's not only us. Please you can also suggest questions that we can go and take our assignment and do homework and come with our research based analysis here. But again, I'll give you the floor, Kwame, if you want to quickly reflect.
Yeah, I think there's no very simple answer, but there's no simple answer to that question. But again, it is not as bad as you think. In certain cases, countries are able to organize. One scenario which we have consistently, spoken about is that you see that there was a conflict, and there was rebels in Ethiopia, in the northern part of the country, but Africa was able to come together. The region was able to come together and support. Actually, majority of the other African countries were able to come together and support Ethiopia, and the African Union was able to lead this without the intervention of the UN or the United States or Europe in this. So Africans were able to solve this. So we need somebody to be able to lead this, and if that is not done among the presidents, we the youth, we have to find a way. That is not, there's no simple answer to it. We have to organize, we have to talk to each other. If we don't talk to each other, we cannot find these solutions, because this is a solution that will catapult us, or we will leapfrog other economies, and we'll be able to capitalize on our resources, the capital which we have, like $3 trillion of economy, the materials which we've spoken about, the human. So because this is a solution that is going to solve majority of our problems as a continent, and our diaspora, of course, because if we solve the continental problems, the diaspora, definitely their problems also will be solved. It's racism and stuff like that. You've seen the killing of George Floyd and all the other African diaspora. Their problems also will be reduced to a certain level because of that respect the continent will gain. So for us to reach that level and marshal the energy to solve those problems, we need to talk to each other and find a solution. And this solution, of course, will be opposed because the external forces do not want to see that. They will also oppose it. They will oppose the fact that we are trying to come together. But we need to agitate for this, just like the agitation for independence happened. The young people that time never thought that Africa would be independent, but they started little by little and they agitated. And imagine that Nkrumah agitated. They agitated in the Gold Coast from 1950, 55 until 1945 until 1957. So that's a period of around 12 years. So it was not a short journey. So we need to come together and start listening together, listening to each other, and talk to each other and find the solutions, because the solutions are within us. So if the problem we are facing is that we are disunited, then if we concentrate our efforts around finding a solution to this problem, I guarantee you that we will find a solution to this problem. And it would not even take us more than 10 years because we have more advantages even right now compared to our ancestors, that we have more communication means right now. We have more resources even right now compared to our ancestors, what they had. So this would not take us even 10 years to accomplish this objective. But we need to sit down and talk to each other and search for those solutions.
Yeah, I share what you said in the beginning. Sometimes, actually, it's also done in a subtle way. Although politically, these leaders, the neighboring countries in Ethiopia or in the region, have not united, but they gave that support for the country to strive and do what it has to do by not letting the non-Africans to intervene in this, at least in a public way. I mean, they have done what they have done, sponsoring the rebel group in the country, but they have tried again and again to bring other African leaders to let down Ethiopia, but they consistently resisted and said publicly that they believe, that this is a solely Ethiopian problem, and they do believe that Ethiopians, both the leader and the people, are able to solve their own problems, and also in terms of solving the problem or bringing a peace into a country. Finally, some say it is arm twisted by the US, but it's done in the terms of the African Union. So that's also important. Sometimes it's done subtly so that we don't acknowledge it. But we do need that political unity, as the PM said also repeatedly. And of course, this is what Kwame Nkrumah said: with no other delay, let's unite or perish. That's what he meant, to have that political unity for the African leaders. That being said, we will see you again, myself and Kwame, on Tuesday. So until then, bye-bye. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend. Yeah. And thank you, Kwame.